Hey, how's it going? It's your boy. It's me. It's Matt. I'm back. And I am not going to cry this time, I promise. I'm in a good mood. Actually, I have moved. I moved out of LA down to San Diego into my friend's condo that he graciously agreed to lease to me. So, all around positive. Had to move everything myself. And if you want to get in shape, you want to lose weight, you want to burn calories, move an entire eBay store by hand. So this is going to be kind of an overview of the state of the union in terms of my personal business and my thoughts about reselling clothing. And the picture is not very rosy. So keep in mind with all of this that I'm just some guy, and these are my personal thoughts about my own business. I'm really hesitant to give you prescriptions about your business, whether or not you should resell clothing or how you should do it, because there are people who are much more experienced than me who, as far as I can tell, are not jumping ship on clothing, which, spoiler alert, I am basically doing. But anyway, this is my thinking about my business as it stands right now. Here's the problem. The clothing industry is going belly up in general. Not just the used clothing market, but the clothing market in general. The coronavirus stuff, all of the shutdowns, the disruption to the market. It has resulted in the big fast fashion companies no longer placing orders for new merchandise from their factories in the third world, and actually refusing to pay for the stuff that they already ordered, and giving the finger to these people who are not going to get paid for the work that they did. And the clothing industry is in crisis as a result. They have a giant stockpile of stuff that they are trying to move, and they're trying to move it at deep discount. So if you go online, if you go to someone like American Eagle or H&M, one of the big clothing companies, you'll see they're running sales up to 70% off of new stuff, which is thrift store prices. And the used clothing market on eBay doesn't seem to have entirely caught on to this fact, because sales are still happening. You see here, I reactivated my store, and that's from 2 or 3 days, so people are still buying stuff. But I feel like it's kind of a scenario like in Looney Tunes, where Wile E. Coyote runs off the edge of a cliff and doesn't fall until he looks down, and then he actually falls. The clothing market has yet to actually look down, so we're sustained in this, what appears to me to be a golden window of people still behaving as if everything was fine, not knowing that there are equivalently cheap options elsewhere, and still spending money superfluously on things like, for example, bathing ape sneakers for $120. These are not things that people need, but they're still paying money for them. So I think we exist in a little bit of a grace period where, if you are afraid of the future of the clothing industry, as I am, and you see this stuff as potentially becoming a liability, then this is the time to sell. I'm not saying that this is absolutely going to become dead weight. It just strikes my instincts as probably what's going to happen. And since I can't or won't source as it is right now, I'm not going to go garage sailing. I'm not going to go to estate sales if any are happening. I'm not certainly going to go thrifting because I can't. I put all of this stuff up for sale at 20%. That number will probably inch higher as the market gets more and more depressed. And I'm just trying to move out of clothing, because I know that I'm good at selling and sourcing clothing. If the clothing market actually bounces back, if thrift stores aren't devastated in the way that I have described previously, if things return basically back to normal, I have the ability to go out and repeat this and replenish this inventory without that much effort. But if it does really end up being dead in the water, where the only way you can move clothing, especially used clothing, is by selling it for like $4 or $5, then this is useless. This becomes a complete loss. And I have quite a bit of money and time wrapped up in all of this, and it hurts just to burn it, having, you know, spent all this time listing it and cultivating the knowledge and building the store, etc. It does hurt to just show it the door, but for me personally, it seems like the smart thing to do. That's what I'm doing with the clothing. In terms of reselling, I'm not just going to give up. I'm going to continue to resell. I don't know what the future is going to look like. I have no idea what the opportunities are. Right now, I have enough savings that I can just kind of kick back and sell this stuff and be fine. My living expenses are very low. My friend gave me a good deal on rent. I'm not spending money on anything except groceries. And even then, I'm kind of stocked up on dry beans and rice, etc. So I can afford just to let this sell off. But in the future, it's going to be other stuff. It's going to be video games. It's going to be hard goods. It's going to be stuff people really need. Probably not clothing. Okay, so that's my perspective on reselling for right now. That's my strategy. In terms of other stuff, with the quarantine happening, I think there are ways to spend your time that are going to be more fruitful than others. Obviously, in the last video, I said that I'm preparing for a future in which reselling is not viable by teaching myself computer programming and copywriting. When I made that video, my priority was computer programming because it's going to be one of the few relatively stable, high-paying jobs that you can do remotely, and that's going to remain in demand. And I've heard this from credible friends that I have who are software engineers who say that, yes, even now, you can still find work as an entry-level person. If you know some basic stuff, if you know if you're fluent in JavaScript, you're just competent in JavaScript, and you generally know what you're doing, apparently there's money there. The learning curve is exceptionally steep, and it's not something that comes naturally to me. What does come naturally to me is copywriting, which is what I'm focusing on first, or primarily with the computer stuff running in the background. I'm still not giving up on it, but my focus right now is on copywriting. Copywriting, if you don't know, is sales copy. It's writing. If you've ever signed up for a seminar online or bought a digital product or read a sales email, that's all sales copy. All the big bold-faced headlines and bullet points and sales videos and all that. There's a lot of, or at least there was a lot of money in that. There's not a lot of kinds of writing that actually consistently make money. The two, actually, as far as I know, are copywriting and writing erotica ebooks on Amazon. Supernatural erotica, at least a couple years ago, was actually the #1 highest selling genre of literature in the world. For better or for worse, definitely for worse. So that's something to consider if you have a werewolf fetish. So I'm doing that. Whatever an equivalent thing would be for you based on your skill sets, I would consider doing that to supplement the reselling revenue that is probably going to dwindle. It just seems inevitable that if we're going into a period of recession, that cute euphemism, it's going to be incumbent upon all of us to diversify our means of making income. Those are my two areas of focus. I'm sure there are other things that you know how to do already or could get better at that are worth thinking about. Also, super important, strengthen your social ties while you can, while you have this perfect premise under which to do it, which is hopefully authentic and heartfelt, that you're concerned for people. And you should reach out to people that you haven't talked to in a while and rekindle those relationships and strengthen them in a sincere, non-cynical way. Communicate more with the people that are in your life, because that directly will translate into your personal security and their security. That this is how things really get done in terms of finding a job, finding opportunities. Case in point, look where I am. I'm in a friend's condo that was basically just handed to me on a silver platter. If I had not had this handed to me, I would probably have to have stayed in LA because I was subletting at my previous place, so I don't have a landlord reference, and I don't have proof of income that's going to be 2.5 times greater than whatever the asking rent is. So you never know what a friendship is going to turn into. That's not the point of having a friendship, but that's a really, if you think back on your own life and think about jobs you've gotten and question, did I get this by sending a cold resume, or did I get this through some kind of a social connection reference? At least in my life, it's almost entire, it's like 80% just social references. So strengthen your social network, strengthen your ties, your friendships, your acquaintanceships, and not just for the sake of this, but because it's worth doing for just its own sake, for everybody's mental health. But you never know how important this little investment of time is going to turn out to be, because if shit really hits the fan and you need a favor, you don't want to be the person that shows up with your hand out having not spoken to somebody who's in a position to do you a favor in 5-10 years. You don't want to be that person. There's going to be a lot of that person. So just be a good person now. Other stuff to consider doing, I would consider starting a YouTube channel. I would start attempting to help people establishing a brand. What that really means is establishing credibility, I think, online, and establishing yourself as someone who is competent and willing to help people and put other people's needs ahead of their own direct needs. I mean, it's really rare, and I know that I'm kind of patting myself on the back right now, but it's very rare to encounter people like that, and those people are very, very valuable. People who are good at what they do and are willing, who go out of their way to help others to do it out of good intentions and not just for direct personal gain. That's like 1 in 100,000 people. So be one of those people. There are easier ways to get direct payoff in terms of convincing someone to buy an ebook or whatever, but I have to believe that it's a safe place to be in that tiny little nucleus minority of people who are good people and competent. And I think this is probably a good way to do that, also because it's enjoyable for its own sake, and we're all getting a little crazy and lonely, so good time to do it. And I would say that's, other than that, the things I've been focusing on are health and lifestyle stuff. I've said this a few times. I don't drink anymore. I don't drink caffeine. I don't use computer screens after 10 p.m. I exercise every day, and I'm a vegan now as of basically the outbreak of this disease. If you've never considered seriously being vegan, consider it. I think it makes its own case after a while. The pros way outweigh the cons. That's my little elevator pitch, and it stops there. I'm not going to proselytize to you, except to say that even if you don't go full hog, so to speak, with veganism, considering eating mostly whole foods, plant-based, is probably, I would say 99% certainly the way to go. And making these, again, small investments up front in your health are going to potentially pay off enormous, incalculable dividends later, especially in light of the fact that we're not getting health care. The cavalry isn't coming. We're fucked. So do everything that you can to put yourself in a position of figurative and literal strength in terms of your health and well-being, because it really matters, and it's just going to matter more and more and more. Okay, that's my video. That's what is on my mind, and I hope some of this was helpful. And I promise it won't be another month before we speak again. All right, thanks.